I got the ones. Like I have more cases in the back, but. Different parts. Every Chianti is made of mostly Sangiovese. Wine is so authentic to the. So I am gonna jump in because specifically Vernaccia, and this is also specifically from the town of Saggiano. This is the Vernaccias. Okay, so ladies, you're on the second Vernaccia, which this is a Reserva. And this one was tied for first place in Decanter magazine for the best Vernaccia of 2018. This is Simone.
Yes.
So this is the winemaker. I'm so happy.
And if I am here, it's helpful.
Yes, exactly. I'm so happy to see you. Yes.
It's a old vineyard, and we have it's 30 km from San Gimignano on the Chianti Hill, and a very nice soil of Galesso stone. It's an old vineyard, and I produce a little grape, very tasteful, and I let the grape come very ripe. And when it's ready, I harvest and I put in wood for 2 years or 3 years, depending on the vintage, and 2 years in the bottle.
The Vernaccia. In white and specifically Vernaccia. And where is this? It's in Tuscany, and it's in Happy Chianti. I love that. And again, it's under $20.
This
we have
is
it
good
on
for
sale for I think $15.99.
Yeah.
I mean that's a no-brainer. I think that people will buy cases of this for home because this is so delightful.
Hi Cynthia, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
So your father started the business some years ago. How did he develop a taste for wine?
He started tasting wine in the 60s with my mom. Instead of drinking spirits with their friends, they decided to dabble in wine, especially from Germany.
Now, growing up, you and your brother run the business today. Did you talk about wine when you were growing up?
All the time. We were constantly talking about wine. We would be at the dinner table eating and talking about what happened during the day, but my dad would be saying to us, what do you smell? What does it look like? What do you think this is? So we were at an early age being trained to taste wine and to appreciate it as more of part of the experience to have with food.
So what do you think makes the bottle shop unique?
You know, we are different in the sense that when my parents decided to have a wine shop, they were emulating a true wine merchant in more of a traditional European sense. So we're not just here to sell bottles, we're here to guide people, to teach people about wine and spirits, to help them enhance their lives really. Just like if you were in London in the 1800s, you had a doctor, a lawyer, and a wine merchant. So that's really what he strived for us to be able to do.
So what wines do you carry that you seldom see other places?
There's probably a lot of things because people are always coming in and saying, you have the best selection, I never see this or that here. For example, perhaps wines from Greece, we have a nice selection, or wines of Portugal. Lately, a lot of people have been traveling to Lisbon, and I'll say, oh, we have a great selection of Portuguese wines. Oh, I'm going to Portugal next week. And then a very deep, of course, selection of Italian wines, which people are often complimenting that like Italians, because perhaps they go to other stores and they have Italian wines, but maybe not as broad of a selection.
So if somebody's really serious about wine, what should they know about the Bottle Shop?
That we have truly the best wines from every winemaking country and in every price point. So you can be very serious about wine, but not have to spend $50 to $100 a bottle. You could be serious about it and want to spend $15 to $25. And when that's the case, there really, I believe, I don't think there's a better place to do that and to learn and to enjoy wine than the Bottle Shop.
So how do you select the wines for the shop?
Thomas and I taste a lot of wine. We taste, we research, we meet with winemakers, with importers. We're constantly on the search, and we tend to, like really our dad did, we tend to find things or research things ahead of the trend. So dry rosés. We have been talking about and promoting dry rosés for now it's almost 20 years, but it's recently where people really got into them, and now we have such a great selection, and people say, oh, every dry rosé I buy at the Bottle Shop I love. That's not necessarily the case in other stores for them.
So what was your most memorable wine meal?
Oh, that's a good question. I would have to say I worked in the Washington, D.C. market. I had graduated from college, came to work at the Bottle Shop with my family, continued my education, if you will, in the wine industry for a few years. But then I was poached by an importer to work in the Mid-Atlantic market. And in DC, there are a lot of great restaurants, and someone in our group organized a magnums of champagne only wine dinner, and that was my most memorable because people don't often think of champagne with food, but I love champagne with food. I love champagne all the time, with food, without food. It's really just, it's such a pleasure to drink. So that would have to be, because we were drinking vintage champagnes at the time that were, higher end. Now they're super high end, and they were all in Magnum. So that was my most memorable meal. A lot of shellfish, a lot of seafood with that.
So 3 people you'd like to sit down and drink some wine with, dead or alive?
Okay. Julia Childs. Actually, I might make it all more chefs, because we just lost Anthony Bourdain, and he was such an amazing inspiration. So now that he's passed, he can drink wine again. So we'll drink wine together. Julia Child, and let's see. Actually, you know what? I'm going with my dad. I would love for my dad to be back and get to drink wine with him.
Okay. So last meal. What's on the menu, and what wines are you going to pair with it?
Okay. So we'll do champagne. We'll think of the wines first. So we'll do champagne. We'll do a little rosé, white Burgundy, and red Burgundy. So we'll make it a French meal. We'll make the last meal all French all the way, and start with maybe some caviar canapes and move into a lobster or a shrimp appetizer. Let's see, with the Pinot Noir, I think a beautiful lamb dish, something that'll be really savory and rich. And then, of course, finish with dessert. I'll take a pot de creme.
So last question. How about a new find recently?
Yes, okay. New find recently, there is it's summertime here. So we found a perfectly dry Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley that's so aromatic, that's so, it's fresh and clean, and yet, full flavored. It's $20 a bottle, and it's just, and no one could not like this white wine. And whether they like Sancerre or they like or Chardonnay, you really have to. That's a very refreshing, perfect little new white, and it's from next to Vouvray, but they can't get the classification from the government to be called Vouvray. There's a whole thing going on there. So these young guys are just making the best wine that they can and calling it by the grape Chenin Blanc.
That sounds good. Thanks so much, Cynthia.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here.